Hi, my name is Corey Seifers. I'm a realtor in Charlotte, North Carolina. Obviously, I do work for 100% commission, but this video is for those homeowners that may be interested in selling your house, what is known as FSBO, or for sale by owner. And many people do this to save commission. Now, I do want to talk about that right out of the gate. Yes, if you sell for sale by owner, there is a chance that you can save some money on commission. I urge you to consider this because even people that sell for sale by owner, a large portion of them do end up listing with a realtor because their home isn't selling quick enough. And part of that is just exposure, right? Because I know that it seems like you can go on Zillow or Red or whatever these third-party sites are and just list your home for sale. The reality is, as a consumer, when you go to these sites, you have to actually check a certain tab to show homes that are listed by the owner and not by a realtor. I don't know why that is. I've noticed that over the years. So people may not even see your listing unless they're actually going in to check that box. Also, another thing to consider, if someone's already working with a realtor, they are most likely getting listings sent to them directly by the MLS, and they may never go back on a Zillow. Now, speaking personally, I've had a lot of clients over the years that even though I send them things via the MLS, yes, they do still check third-party sites. So that's not definitive. That's just a precaution for you as a homeowner looking to sell by yourself. That's great. I mean, just give them the pros and cons, basically. Another thing, when it comes to commission, depending on what a listing agent charges you, now obviously there's been a lot of legislation, so things have changed, but the reality is most homeowners are still offering a buyer agent commission. So with that being said, if you have someone selling your house and they're charging you 2 to 4% on the list side, and you also offer the buyer agent 2 to 4%, even without having an agent, most buyers do have a realtor that they're working with. Now, that's not to say that every single one of them will not just contact the first sale by owner and never have to work with a realtor, but I would say 9 times out of 10, they're going to have a realtor, and that realtor is most likely going to ask you to pay the commission. Obviously, you're not obligated to pay the commission, but if the buyer doesn't have the means to pay the commission, then you're potentially losing a buyer. So why wouldn't you? So the point being, you lose exposure. You also have the headache of showing your house. Now, and I mention this because as a realtor, I've come across a handful of for sale by owners in my career and working with buyers who want to see that property, and I would say some 70% just do not respond to a simple showing request, right? And if you're not able to show your house or respond to inquiries, how are you going to sell your house? So that's one thing to consider, is that there's so much more than just taking pictures and putting it online. I know that it seems like that's their only job, but it's also getting you to the closing table and guiding you along the way and helping you with negotiations. Because if you are a for sale by owner and you put your house on the market and you get a buyer that's represented by a realtor, that realtor who's in this industry knows the ins and outs, and they know of things to do and things to potentially ask for. And so as an example, let's just say you list your house. Well, let's back up. Let's talk about price. Okay, pricing your home is single-handedly the most important thing that you can do. And this is not just for sale by owners. This is also for realtors, because if you are overpriced, you're not likely to get showings and you're not likely to get offers. It doesn't matter. I know a lot of people think, oh, I'll just list a certain percentage higher so that I can negotiate down to a price that I want. No, you need to price it accordingly, because you're not guaranteed to get an offer when you price high. Now, if you price too low, you're most likely going to get several offers and end up going over what you had it listed for. So let's now go back to what I was going to say before. If you are a for sale by owner, you put your house on the market. Let's just say you've priced it. Well. You're not going to get the same exposure, right? But you have a buyer. That buyer has a realtor. Your house was, we're just throwing out hypotheticals. You listed your house for $300,000, and it's actually worth $300,000. The realtor that's representing the buyer ran comps, and they're like, yeah, that's a good price. You go under contract. And depending on your state, I'm in North Carolina. In North Carolina, at least in the Charlotte region, our contract, and I believe it's for the whole state, but I know they are sometimes a regional, based on your state and where you are in the state. So for us, it's an as-is contract, meaning there's no reason, like a buyer can't get an inspection and then request certain repairs. Like certain contracts in certain states do have a repair procedure, repair procedure is what they call it. So if certain items come up on the inspection, it's kind of agreed upon that the seller will make those repairs, and if the seller doesn't, then the buyer can walk away. So in North Carolina, we have what's called a due diligence period, where the buyer can walk for any or no reason. So it's an as-is state, right? My point being, if that buyer came to your listing and they have an agent and you don't, they know the contract inside and out. So let's just say they go under contract at $300,000, which is what your home is worth. They do a home inspection and they find some items that may or may not necessarily need to be replaced, but they might ask for them, or they might ask for a credit, and they might bring these to you and say, look, we've got all of these items coming up. We want a $10,000 price reduction. Well, because you had it on the market just on Zillow or somewhere, and this might have only been your only showing, this might be your only offer, this might be your only individual to entertain. So now you've lost some leverage, because in your mind, okay, this person's asked for $10,000, they might walk, because you may not know the pros and cons. And so you go ahead and just give in and drop the price to $10K, or give them a $10,000 closing cost credit, whatever. And maybe you want to do that anyway, and if so, that's great. It doesn't matter. My only point being, these are just some things to consider, because if you had your house on the market for sale by owner and you didn't have a ton of people looking at it, in your mind it might seem like, well, I may not find another buyer, so I have to give in to this buyer, even though, and you also have no one to look at these items with you to really tell you these actually are bullshit. But now you just left $10,000 on the table, all because you were trying to save money. So those are some of the biggest things to consider when selling for sale by owner. Is pricing the home correctly, your lack of leverage, your lack of maybe knowing everything in and out with the contract. Not to mention showings, inspections. Are you planning on being there with these people every single time, or are you just gonna give some random person a code to your house? Now, I know that it seems like, well, that happens anyway with realtors, but realtors are held to a higher code of ethics. Realtors, we do have background checks. So all these things are in place for realtors, and if your listing is with a realtor, only other realtors who have been vetted are allowed access into your home. And not only that, but we know exactly who's coming into your home and when, right? So if something were to happen, we know the realtor, and we have a time slot. So those are just my biggest things as far as like the pros and cons. But now if you want to, if you still want to do this, that's great. I want to give you some tips on how to prepare your house for the market, okay? The biggest thing is cleanliness. You want to deep clean the fuck out of your house. And if you're not a very good cleaner, hire someone. Spend the money to have the home professionally cleaned, because they're going to clean everything. They're going to clean baseboards, windows, door seals, everything. And you should. You want to declutter, stage the home. You need to consider your pets, right? If you have a dog or a cat or whatever, you need to figure out what are you going to do with your animal during showings. You need to find out if you're going to be home for showings. You need to find out if you're going to give someone a lockbox. I do not recommend leaving a lockbox on your house for a total stranger to come into your home. If they're a realtor and you can verify that they are a realtor by your state commission real estate website, because they exist and you can search them, you can find out who's actually licensed. But again, you don't know who's actually going to show up to your house. So I don't recommend getting a lockbox or keypad and giving that code out to anybody, even if your house is vacant. I recommend being there with them in person. Go ahead and make any necessary repairs to the home. It wouldn't hurt to have a pre-inspection, and then make any repairs that you see fit. Go ahead and hide all of your valuables, even if you're going to be with them, because people are tricky, people are conniving, people are very sneaky. And these are good tips whether you list your home with a realtor or not. Okay. So when your home is ready, I still recommend hiring a professional photographer, a photographer that specializes in real estate, because they're not all the same. And you can find this, I believe there's a company that I use for all of my listings. It's called Hamati, H-O-M-M-A, I believe it's got 2 T's, H-O-M-M-A-T-T-I, it might be 1 T, I don't know, Hamati.com. And you can find a local professional photographer on that website. I think they're aware. If they're not, just go on Google and type in real estate photographer. You'll probably get a handful of them. One thing that you can do to help yourself once you start showings, ask for feedback. And one thing that I like to ask my clients specifically is, what is one thing you love about the home, and what is one thing you would change about the home if you could? Because if you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get maybe the answer that you're seeking. So if you just say, let me just know your feedback, oh, it's okay, it's just not for me. Well, that doesn't tell you anything. But if you ask a specific question, what do you love, what would you change? If they say, well, for me, I would change the paint color. That's something you can make that repair, you can paint the house, okay? If they say, well, I would prefer for this room to be here, or the layout, there ain't shit you can do about that. But if you're getting feedback and you start getting some of the same things, at least you know, okay, well, I probably should address that. Or maybe reach out to these people and ask them, if I were to do this, would you make an offer? Right. But you also have to take that feedback positively. You can't ask for feedback and then be negative, right? I'll give an example. This is kind of funny. A couple of years ago, I hosted an open house for another realtor in my office. The house that I hosted, it was a flip, okay? And when I got there, I'm like, what in the hell? Like some of the choices that they made were just, quite frankly, awful. They had, the flooring that they used was LVP, which is not the problem, but you can tell whoever laid this flooring had no experience, and they did not know what they were doing. And I've never even laid flooring, and I know that was wrong, because they had the flooring laid almost like tile. Like, I'm trying to explain this. It was like, they didn't stagger it at all. So it was just, like, you could see the line. It was awful. That was one part. They did this weird thing in the kitchen where they had the center island, like, kind of like cat-cornered in the room, and it just looked stupid. It ate up all this space in the kitchen for no reason. In the bathroom, the primary bathroom, they had, this bathroom was massive, but they put this tiny little shower in there, like, for no reason. And so anyway, my point of this is, after the open house, I spoke with the list agent, and he was seeking feedback, and I was like, yeah, we had a couple people come through. I was like, kind of the general consensus was they just weren't interested. They didn't, they wouldn't tell me why, even though I asked those questions, right? They just gave like bullshit responses. But so I was like, but I'll be honest, I was like, I'll give you my feedback, my opinion on the house. I was like, I think that there was a lot of potential with this flip, and I mentioned those several things. Well, come to find out, I didn't know this part. The listing agent was also the owner, and he got very offended. And I was like, look, I'm not saying anything to be disrespectful. I'm giving you feedback because you asked for it, and I think that there are things that, even obviously you're probably not going to change for this house, but if you're going to do another flip, you need to be more mindful of what you're doing, because I'm certain that this house turned off a lot of people who may not have been turned off otherwise, because it was a nice house. It just had a couple of things that, it's like, why would you pay top dollar for a house that was just remodeled just to have to come in and fix their mistakes? So you have to take criticism in a positive manner, right? So those are just some tips to getting your house ready. I think I mentioned the basics. Yeah, clean your house, stage it if you will, and staging again can be with your own furniture. Pressure wash the exterior. If your home needs paint, you should paint. If your exterior needs painted, you should paint. If you can do some light landscaping to freshen up the exterior in the front, go ahead and do it. You basically want your house to attract as many people as possible. And yeah. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe to my channel. I plan on making more random videos like this to try to help out, not only for sell by owners, but just give insight if you're looking to sell. And of course, if you're in the Charlotte area, and I cover about an hour and a half outside of Charlotte. So I've gone as far as Connolly Springs, I've gone as far as Forest City, I've gone as far as Ansonville and Anson County, up to Statesville, as far south as Lancaster. Now, I will tell you right now, I do not travel to these areas for buyers because buyers can be a lot of trips. Now, I will drive into these distances for listings because listings, you do all the work on the front end and it's usually just 2 or 3 trips, but they're at least planned accordingly. But it is tough to work with a buyer that's an hour away because if they find a house that just pops up and they need a showing, if they live and work in that area, it's convenient for them, but then now I'm driving all across town and it's just easier for me to stay local to Charlotte with buyers, but with listings, I'm happy to go about an hour and a half or 2 outside of my area. Also, if you are not in Charlotte and you're anywhere in the country, I also work on referrals. I'd be more than happy to help you vet local realtors and go from there. So thanks again for watching. I hope that you all have a fantastic day. Bye now.